Hi everybody, my name is Igor from YouRender and today I'm here to talk about our latest release. So to begin, first what I would like you to do is to change layout to YouRender layout. Now, I just want to mention that the idea here is really not to force you into using our new integrated layout, but instead to actually give you a bit more of an idea what and how you can do things differently with YouRender within Cinema 4D, simply because Cinema 4D have some nice layout features that usually are not talked about. But first I would like to talk about top palette, which is pretty much familiar and there is not much that's new. So from the left we just added 3 new icons which are basically coming from file menu. And those icons are recent files, open project and merge project. Here it's basically nothing new, everything from standard layout, while this side here is basically what we support, like light objects, and this little lighting tool is something that usually is not used or you cannot see it in other tutorials, but I hope I will show you some nice things which are kind of unique for YouRender, which you can use. And here we have our camera object and our volumetric object, while here we have start and pause buttons, while here on this side we have our render to picture viewer, we have project asset inspector, and then we have some save icons or export or like save project with asset. Here one we have export filter. This one is a bit unique because it will save whatever you have selected in your object manager. As you can see, when I have selected something, now this icon is not anymore grayed out. While here we have save project as and then save incremental. So while you're working, you can simply reach to these icons and save your project or export or simply save incremental, which I would definitely recommend to be used often in case you have a crash or something, you know that you always have files saved. I also will talk about these light objects because for this release they are a bit different, but I will talk about this a bit later. Now I want to jump to our bottom palette, which is new, but as you can see there is not much that's changed. We just added some things, and a little bit after I will show you actually another cool idea how you can actually use C4D layout with YouRender, which is in my opinion really nice. So to start with the bottom palette, on the left side we have our new, I would call them smart presets, because now we bring these presets to you, and if you want to start with some materials and you don't want to make them from scratch, you can do that with these presets. And basically what we have here is glossy plastic, we have metallic paint, we have chrome, we have rough metal, then gold, glass and dark rubber. While on the right side we have some nice filters that can be really nicely used with YouRender, which I will also show you a bit later. Now let's go back to these materials, and what's different here is that, let me just open a new file with Ctrl N, and if I add, for example, sphere, what I can do right now is I can add these materials, these presets, directly to this object without creating, usual workflow is you create material, you drop and drag directly into Viewport, or you drag and drop, to the actual object manager, to this object, or you simply have object selected and then you press right mouse button and then you press apply, and this is how you would usually apply your object. But with these materials, these presets, if you have object selected and if you press and hold shift modifier and now press one of these material presets, for example, let's say I wanna add dark rubber to this object, if I hold my shift and press left mouse button, this material will be directly applied to this object. So this will happen with any object you have selected from the viewport. But we don't stop here. So for example, if this object now is editable, which you can do with C, in case this object is parametric, if we go to the polygon mode and let's say we select few polygons here, and now usually again we would either drop and drag, right click, apply, and that's it. But now what you can do is, in case you want to create a new material for polygon selections, is also if you press shift and hold shift and then, I don't know, choose gold, now you're able to basically, let me just render, see, now you're able to apply with this technique any of the presets you would like. And then you can change, of course, just usual stuff from your attribute manager, or in this case what we did, instead of having these floating windows, which I really don't like, if you press double click on, let's say on dark rubber, now what will happen on the left side, you're gonna have basically material editor jump out. And why I like this especially is because now when you work a bit more with your render, with this, your, I would say, muscle memory is gonna basically always know where this material editor will be, and you know we'll have to move floating windows around just to see what's going on. So if I render now here, and let me just for this example use one of these filters. In this case, this filter. Basically, these filters comes from this filter menu in the viewport. And what's nice about this hot filter is that, as you can see, it hides all the unnecessary elements of viewport so that you can actually be more concentrated on your material and things you do. So let me just add here a subdivision so that we have a little nicer reflections or outline. And now what I can simply do is, change the color if I want. And as you can see, it's very fast and very nice. And then we come to another point. As you can see, we can basically quickly change whatever we like. Now, another thing I would like to mention, you will notice that now, because these are presets, we simply didn't expose all the channels simply because you don't need them, in this case for dark rubber. But in case you need them, you simply can convert to advanced, and then you have your usual render material, and you can pick any channel you like and I don't know, add, let's see, noise here. And as you can see, it's really nice, and you can really get to some results pretty fast, right? And now, if you don't need this editor anymore, you simply go here. You can see that my mouse cursor is changing icon, and when you see this icon, if you press middle mouse button, this material editor will now be gone. And another thing you can do is simply do the same by clicking here on this, it's called hamburger icon, and you get the same effect. So there is not one way, there is more ways to do things. But what is actually nice, and I just wanna now explain why, for example, we have our render settings here. If I open this menu, and this now I will use only geometry only. So when you actually activate geometry only filter, as you can see, absolutely everything from viewport will be gone, and now you can even be more concentrated on what you are doing. As you can see, there are no elements, even the axis and this axis are gone. So you have focus on your materials. And now what's really nice with this setup is if we now go here to this hamburger menu and press and hold Alt and we press left mouse button, this happens. And what actually happened here is that now we managed to focus our rendering settings, and now on the left side we have our material, which can be quickly changed in case you want to change more materials. And on the right side we can change our, as you can see, we can change our environment map to be more precise, horizontal rotation, and we can, quickly get the idea what kind of material this will be, etc, etc. Now, to demonstrate this a little bit better, let me open my, where is my Formula 1 model? Okay, let me just start rendering again. It will take a few seconds because the scene is really heavy, and I think I have, okay, I don't have. And now what I really like is now we can use some of these filters, and one particular filter in this case, which is very, very useful, is object highlighting. And what it does is, you can see now when I hover over the objects, nothing happens, and I'm not really sure what I will select from the viewport. But if we activate this filter and now hover over, as you can see, in the background something changed, and because I have a background object, which I will now simply remove. Basically what happened, let me just explain. What happened is that this filter that we activated now highlights the objects we are hovering over, and basically telling you that if you press left mouse button, you will now select this object. But we don't want to do that. Let me just hide this object and deselect it. And now, for example, if I hover over the tires, you can clearly see that this tire, let me just for a bit, this material editor. And now you can see that this tire is highlighted. It goes for all objects. So any individual object will be highlighted. And to demonstrate even more how this can work nicely is, for example, let's say I want to change a bit of reflections of this tire. So I would just simply press now left mouse button, and I can see that this axis is actually in the way. So what I will do, I will simply disable this axis, right? And then I will press S on my keyboard to focus this tire. But to go further, what I can do, I can simply go to solo mode and just have this tire focus into viewport, and then even more control over this object and this particular material. And now to actually show you why this layout I really like is, let me just like this, focus this, and let's deselect the object. And now, as you can see on the left side, while I have my material editor, on the right side I have my render settings. And what I can really fast and efficiently do is simply, in this case I want to change reflections, I can go under the reflectance channel, and then as you can also see, I have much more visibility over all these parameters. And what's better here, in my opinion, when you have floating windows, you often need to, resize always, and so just you can have the overview of the all parameters. But in this case, if you can see, and if you even work with a bigger resolution, you have even more space to work with. So this is simple HD resolution. As you can see, we really have nice space to work with. What you can also do, in case you don't need to see this, you can simply also press middle mouse button here. You can also now notice that mouse cursor change the icon. This is how you can be sure that you're hovering over the correct thingy. And if you press middle mouse button, or in this case, you see the help bubble say that you can also press Ctrl plus left mouse button, and then this menu will hold. And then it goes through all these managers. And now, as you can see, I have really nice focus over this particular material. And now I can simply go here and change my reflectance. And then here under render settings, I can see how this reflectance behaves under different light angles. In this case, I have environment map only. I can also see how exposure changed this material. You can obviously see how this can be beneficial when you need to focus on specific materials. Now, of course, this will not be useful for every case, but in this case, it's extremely useful, and it's really much better to use. Now, there is another way you can actually use this layout to benefit you, and let me just demonstrate here. Let's close this material editor. Let's open our materials here. And now, if we go to our object manager, but as you can see now we are missing our attribute manager. And instead of reaching out attribute manager from here by clicking left mouse button, what we can do is we can actually press double click on one of these tags, material tags, or on any tags or any object. And then our attribute manager will also be always placed on the same place where it was before we actually put in focus some of these managers, either object manager or render setting manager. Now, let's say I wanna change from here in this way our tires. What I can also do with press and hold Alt on the keyboard with left mouse button, I can also put attribute manager on the right side in focus, and now from here I can change my glossiness from reflectance channel. And what's a bit different from attribute manager is that now our channels are set up here. So they're not like here, but instead, as you can see, they are positioned here. So it's really up to you to see which way works better for you. And now if I wanna bring back my object manager or render settings, I can also do that, and now I can work like this. So as you can see, what's really nicely in Cinema 4D is that you can do different things in different ways. So this was the idea actually that we wanted to present, and this is what actually new layout brings. This is the value now you can guys actually harvest, and hopefully these ideas can help you out, and you can make rendering inside C4D much more enjoyable. So again, idea here was not to force you to using our layout, but actually to give you some nice ideas how you can benefit from this layout, to learn something new, which was actually the goal here. What's also important to say is that if you press on these material previews left mouse button just once, you can see that you can change your material or focus material in attribute manager. But if you press left mouse button twice on these materials, then material editor from the left will open. Or if you're using floating windows, it will simply open it up as a floating window. So that's the difference. And also one thing I want to mention is it goes the same with the tags. If you press left mouse button on a tag just once, you get different settings. In this case, you can now change the projection and an offset and tiles, etc. While pressing twice, you get your materials in Attribute Manager. Now, what's also nice is in case, for example, let's say you have a lot of objects here and you simply want to just focus on these objects because you have your material editor on the left side, and in case, for example, you need, I don't know, your camera object. Now here is the trick. If you press left mouse button twice on the text, you will change the text. Now you can change the text. But if you actually hover over the icon of the object, so it can be light, it can be camera, it can be a parametric object. If you press twice on the icon, Attribute Manager will show up again. And if you want to hide it instead of focus, you simply press middle mouse button on this hamburger icon. And also, if you can see, if you hover over with your mouse pointer over the hamburger icon, you can see then in a help bubble what actions to do to actually achieve something. So this is actually what I really like. And as you can see, it goes same for the lights. I'm not sure what happened here. Let me just focus this tire again. Okay, because I pressed left mouse button twice on these cameras, as you can see, that actually what I'm doing is basically changing my viewport cameras which are in focus. So another nice tip. So it also goes with your bent object. So if you press twice, this will happen. In case, don't forget, in case your Attribute Manager is hidden or not in focus. So nice little tip. Hopefully you can use it wisely. And yeah, hopefully that helps you in your workflows. But let me bring back my tire. And now why I cannot focus here with solo or with framing this particular object is because my camera here, front V2, is under protection tag, which basically stops you of basically doing anything with this camera. So I will switch to my camera perspective, make sure this little tire is in focus. And as you can see, once I hover over, the reason why I see this white and outlines or wireframe here is because I have this filter enabled. Once I don't have it, you can see that now highlighting is simply gone. So hopefully guys, you learned something from this. Before I end, I also want to mention that we created new tags for our objects, and hopefully you find them now much more useful and visible. And yeah, before I finish, I wanna also mention that now whenever you add a new light into the scene, let me now demonstrate this a little bit better. Let me now simply go out of the solo mode. Let's make sure my formula is in our viewport. By the way, this is all live mode, so, and have in mind I'm recording, so performance is a bit worse, but as you can see, it's still very fast. Now, before I finish, I actually want to mention a few more things, and those things are something specific with light objects and then this little tool. Now, what's specific is with these light objects is now when you create or add light object from this layout, you will notice that now these light objects, it's same for all, they have already assigned uRender like tag. So you will not have to go with right mouse button and then go to uRender tags and then choose uRender light tag every time you create a light. So we actually wanted to make some workflow improvements in this sense, where you can actually, or basically skipping the steps that you need to, repeat every time when you add camera object or when you add light object into your scene. Also, what we added or changed is that now shadow mode is enabled by default. It's not anymore set to none, simply because it's logical that you wanna start rendering scenes as fast as possible. So all these steps are now skippable, and probably you will use shadow mode, or I would say soft shadows or hard shadows more often than not. So in case you don't need it, you will have to simply switch to none. But I'm sure that more often need your shadows than don't. Now let me explain how this tool works with uRender. As you can see, light mode is on, and I just want to change this mode to diffuse placement. And now what will happen if I have my light object selected in my object manager? As you can see here in the viewport, you see this little gizmo. If I press left mouse button, the light will now position depending where this little gizmo or cursor, or call it whatever you like, is in the viewport. What's really nice is that, as you can see guys here, you can extremely fast position your light and get the idea what your lighting might be. Now on top of that, if you press and hold Control while you're using this tool, you can directly change the intensity of the light. On top of that, if you press Shift, you can move away. See here, you can move away or basically move forward this light depending on where this gizmo is. You see these 4 dots, this is basically my light, and if I change this to just show in render, now you can actually see how this light behaves and where is it in the viewport. Now you can clearly see that position of this light is not really good. So what you need to do now is press Alt, and now if you can notice, with Alt you're basically aiming with this light and saying where you want this light to be directed. So intensity, you can choose how much your light will be further or closer, and then you can simply with Alt change direction. So guys, hopefully now you can use this tool, which I'm sure you didn't use before, or you didn't have a clue that this can be used like this with uRender. Hopefully now you can use it and actually see the benefit which in a unique way uRender brings to you. So guys, this would be pretty much it. Hopefully you'll learn something. Please leave a comment if you have any feedback, if you have any more ideas. We certainly want to bring some more to workflow improvements. Also, if you have some ideas that you would like to see for these material preset, let us know. of course, in the comments or send us email. What we will have in the near future is open Discord channel. Actually, we already have it open, but right now it's only for beta testers, and in the near future it will be open for every customer. So guys, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, comment, and see you in the next tutorial.